photo depicting some beauty contestants in Korea went viral on Reddit. Someone posted it on Reddit, and the reason why people were talking about it is because every single contestant looked like every other one. I mean, like the image is just uncanny. One contestant from another, they just look like the same person. And in South Korea, plastic surgery is very common. In fact, they have the most plastic surgery per capita. And as a result, this was kind of used as a way to criticize the women of South Korea and how they tend to completely change the way they look in order to become more westernized. So that got a lot of attention. And then recently, there was a follow-up to that story indicating that that image could possibly have been photoshopped, because if you really look at what these contestants look like in real life, they look different. They don't look exactly the same.
All right, I get a couple of things out of the story. First of all, it turns out it wasn't Miss South Korea. It was from a specific section of South Korea.
Yes, Daegu, Miss Daegu contestants.
Right. And so
that's Italy. Isn't that Italy? Oh, that's Daegu.
I denounce and reject that joke and me for laughing at it.
Me too.
All right, and you see the video and they look different, etc. But to me, the most stark part of all this is that without makeup, they look really different than with makeup. Right?
Yes.
More than anything else. But to be honest, you know, as people were talking about the story the first time around, and even as I saw the first set of pictures, I didn't think they all looked alike.
Really?
No, I didn't. So now, look, those last two women look nothing like each other. And the other part of this is our bias, which is very ironic, because we're biased in favor of saying you don't have to look Western. Right, that's like the liberal perspective here in the West, whereas you know a lot of Asians feel like, what do you care what we look like? You don't want to do the plastic surgery, even if we want to look quote unquote more Western. So what? That's what we want to look like. So what are you judging me for? So it's fascinating.
And also it's very interesting to see how the perception of plastic surgery differs from one country to another. So for instance, in the United States, people are very, very judgmental when it comes to plastic surgery, and they'll make the argument that you should accept yourself for who you are. There's a lot of criticism when it comes to vanity, although I'll make the argument that vanity is not that big of a deal. Like in terms of criticisms, I think that's a pretty weak sauce criticism. Vanity means people care about how they look. So what? Right? But then in countries like Brazil and in South Korea, plastic surgery is not that big of a deal. People are just like, okay, well, if I have the money to fix a certain thing on my face or my body that I don't like, why wouldn't I use my resources to do so? What's the big deal?
Just like we don't think it's a big deal, people use braces or they whiten their teeth. It's the same thing, right?
Exactly.
It's just matter of fact, and that's the way it is. I know Brazil is really big on plastic surgery.
Yes, and also where do you draw the line, right? Because, all right, makeup isn't plastic surgery because you're not permanently changing your face, but the way I look like right now is very different from the way I look on the weekends, right?
Oh, really?
So you know what? I don't know. Anyway,
the way I look now is pretty similar to how I actually look.
Not really.
But actually, no. Look, on the weekends, I'll have a baseball hat. 8 out of 10 times, I'll have like a ragged shirt
Scruffy.
and scruffy, and I'll have glasses on. They'll be like, "Is that you?" But I don't know what looks worse. I mean, it doesn't look good either way. So I'm in a different situation. But look, back to the South Koreans for a second. Can you put up the first picture again? As I look at this, I mean, some of them clearly look. The women on the right in the black dresses, they look very similar. I think.
Yes, that looks like the same person.
Yeah, and so to be fair, I get that part of it, right? But if you look all the way on the left, those aren't the same people. Those two in that row, not even remotely.
Much bigger eyes on the bottom than the girl on the top.
Right. And then the other thing I think is like, South Koreans, I'm kind of into it.
Yes, I'm like, that girl in the white, I'm second from the top. She's got the biggest ego.
Yeah, I mean, she's from Daegu, so.
And there they are.
And then when you look at this, well, not so much, but that's the whole point of makeup, I guess, right?
Yeah, go get yourself, See, that's the whole.
This is actually turns out to be an ad for Revlon.
Let me just jump in and say that usually when you look at most models, like let's say you watch America's Next Top Model, I mean, the most interesting part of that show was watching the transformation of these very, very average looking girls into these supermodels, right? So what you see in movies and magazines and everything is so irrelevant, because what happens is they'll take an average woman and they'll turn her into, this Hollywood glamour
Right.
woman that everyone
So-
should be jealous of or whatever. But she's average.
Yeah, I agree and disagree. So two things about that. Number one, on the models, I think they take enormously mediocre looking women, okay, they just happen to be incredibly tall and skinny, and turn them into incredibly mediocre looking women who look slightly transgendered. Okay, I think
it depends on what you're referring to. Like,
I don't think they're beautiful at all. Those models they don't.
okay, there's a difference between.
I'd rather take 8 of those Koreans before I take one of those models.
There's a difference between runway models, the models that you're used to seeing walk the runway with
Yes.
the clothing on, and they look like they haven't eaten anything for
Yes.
months, right? And then there's also a difference between commercial models. Commercial models, like for instance, Victoria's Secret models.
They look great.
Yeah, they
I
do,
know.
so.
But those commercial models, they do a ton of makeup and they pull their face, and I'm like, what is that thing? No, I have no interest. Now, you're right though when it comes to Hollywood. I mean, I think Drew Barrymore is the most ordinary looking person on the planet. Kate Hudson, whatevs, okay?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Reese Witherspoon is like, she's moderately attractive, right? But then they're like,
Do you know who she is?
Do I know her name? So they splotch all this thing, but not in a bad way. They do it, good touch and the gloss and the lighting, and then all of a sudden, you're like, oh, damn, you see Reese Witherspoon? Oh, shit, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Is that your
That's what you
reaction?
do.
But how funny in
That
this
might just be a Turkish thing or a Cenk thing.